we're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. We want to welcome you all to the March 19th House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor and Economic Opportunity. And I will call this meeting to order. We are waiting for a few more representatives to come, but I'm sure they'll be here. The elevators can get kind of dicey on lobby days, so we'll give them a little grace. So we're going to go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Clerk, will you do that for us, please?
Chair Jenkins Arno.
Here.
Rep Robinson. Here. Rep Van Workum. Rep Cavett. And Rep Martis. Here. And the chair, majority of members are present. You do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to call a motion to approve the minutes for the subcommittee. Rep Martis moves to approve the minutes of the March 12th meeting. There will be no objections. The meetings are approved. So I just want to welcome everybody. We got a good turnout today for our workforce development subcommittee. We're focusing on workforce development. It's an important topic in Michigan. And we want to look at what we're doing, what we can do better, what we need to, if there are any gaps that we need to fill. So looking forward to hearing our presentations today. So to get the ball rolling, we're going to invite Stephanie Beckhorn, who is the Leo Deputy Director of Employment and Training, and Jay Shauna Hicks, who is the Leo Director of Legislative Affairs. If you guys would come forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Jenkins Arnold and committee members. Again, thank you all for the opportunity to present today. Again, my name is Jay Shauna Hicks, Legislative Director for the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, LEO as we call it. With me today, again, is Stephanie Beckhorn, who's the Deputy Director of Employment and Training, which is housed under LEO, that pretty much leads our workforce solutions. Last week, you heard from Director Corbin, who focused on the governor's FY26 budget recommendations and also highlighting some of our key workforce development programs. And what we heard from that committee, there is an interest in learning more about LEO's workforce development programs. So we're super excited to have Stephanie here to just highlight some of the critical investments we've made for Michigan's workforce, and also provide you with some program outcomes from those investments. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Jay Shauna, and thank you, Chair Jenkins Arno and the rest of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present today. I do know a couple of you, but not all of you, so this is always great to have an introduction and really talk about something that I am very passionate about, and that is the state's workforce development system. As you noted, Stephanie Beckhorn and I have the pleasure of leading the Office of Employment and Training. We are, you can go to the next slide. Just visually to help you, there you go, to kind of to help you visually see, Employment and Training is one of several agencies within LEO that works to support employers, workers, and their broader communities. And I am proud to lead our team that does have staff centralized here in Lansing, but the majority of our staff are spread across all 83 counties in your communities, supporting employers and job seekers throughout the state. Employment and Training works to develop customized workforce solutions for two customers. You will hear us say we have a dual customer approach. The first is businesses, and the second are individuals, including those with disabilities. Employment and Training is made up of 4 areas. Our Bureau of Services for Blind Persons, who supports individuals with low vision or who are blind to help them with employment and independence. The Michigan Rehabilitation Services Agency, who supports individuals with disabilities to help obtain and retain employment and support employers as they work to build an inclusive work environment. Workforce Development, and that is the agency that I'm going to spend the time talking about today. Workforce Development, again, we support employers in ensuring they have access to talent. We remove barriers, support individuals in training to obtain the knowledge, skills, and abilities that their community requires when it comes to good quality jobs. And finally, Operations, who supports our administration, our operational functions, our communication, our outreach, and all of our enterprise information systems, which require us to do all of our reporting on both federal and state programs. As I mentioned for today's presentation, I'm going to focus on workforce development, but don't despair if you want to talk about vocational rehabilitation, which I'm also incredibly passionate about. I will be back next month to really focus on the VR programs. And in Michigan, we are a little unique in the sense that we have 2 VR programs, the Bureau of Services for Blind Persons and Michigan Rehabilitation Services. So we really customize programs for individuals in our state who have disabilities. And I know you heard Director Corbin say last week, that's 1 in 4, so that is a big group. So we will focus on that next month. To help level set today's discussion, I want to highlight Workforce Development's fiscal year 2025 budget. As you can see from the slide here, our fiscal year 2025 budget is just over $510 million. 81%, just over 81% of that $510 million are federal workforce development dollars. So that equates to $510 million is the total workforce development budget. 81%, or $413 million, is federal dollars. And these federal dollars are tied to specific programs that are codified into law by Congress, are subject to a code of federal regulations, and have federal rules and responsibilities that dictate how the funding must be deployed, who's eligible to receive that funding, and what metrics and outcomes we are required to report back to the federal departments that award those funding. By law, we deploy over $100 million in Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, funding, Title I, which is Adult Dislocated Worker and Youth, and Title II, Wagner-Peyser, to our 16 local Michigan Workforce Development Agency boards. The local boards, which are led by chief elected officials in your community, are required to draft local plans that dictate how and where the local dollars will be deployed. In addition to the $100 million in federal WIOA funding, we also award approximately $50 million in adult education funding to over 100 adult education providers throughout the state. The other major portion of WD's budget is state general fund general purpose dollars. You can see there it equates to just over 13% of our budget. I would like to note that 13% equates to just over $68 million, with 80% of that $68 million being the Going Pro Talent Fund that we will talk about in a little bit later. In alignment with Director Corbin's presentation on LEO's broader focus area, workforce development programs help support the state's labor force participation rate and help improve the middle class while also increasing educational attainment of our residents in the state. I do want to highlight that our labor force participation rate did advance by 0.2 in January to 62%. That 62% is the highest level labor force participation rate level since June of 2020. In January, Michigan had a total labor force of just over $5 million, which was a 12,000 member increase over the previous month. So forward progress is great, but we know we have much more to do. And Chair, I appreciate you setting the stage to say we want to learn what's doing well, where we have some gaps, and where we can do better. So we are ranked currently 32nd in the nation when it comes to labor force participation. So that is an area we are focused on. How do we get individuals from off the sidelines into the workforce? We are lagging our peers here in the Midwest, and that is something we don't like, and we strive really hard to make sure that we move the needle. But we are well positioned within workforce development to continue that forward progress and get individuals from your communities back into the workforce or into the workforce for the first time. To do that, we are focused on tackling what we refer to in workforce development programs as the, I'm sorry, I did go ahead a little bit. The Big Four. We really want to help individuals understand that there are programs to support them, including underrepresented populations. We want to help individuals understand to get a job, to keep a job. What skills are employers in their community requiring? And how do you go about getting those skills? Is it on-the-job training? Is it a registered apprenticeship? Is it a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree? We want to be that source of information because the data is very clear when it comes to educational attainment. The more educated you are, the more job opportunities you have. The more educated you are, the higher wages you have. And so we really want to support the Michigan workforce and understanding the needs for upskilling their talent. But we don't want to train people just to train and pray. You'll hear some people say that, or just, train for training's sake. We want to ensure that the training leads to employment. So we work with employers, that dual customer, to understand their training needs. How many people are they looking to hire? In what occupations? Do they require a certificate, a credential? Are there years of experience? So we work with employers to do customized training to get the individual into the job, and we want to make sure that's a good quality job. So we want to boost wages and make sure individuals are earning money to support themselves and their families. As I mentioned prior, workforce development major programs are federally funded, authorized by Congress, and they support 3 key audiences, which I will detail over the next few slides. By law, the majority of our workforce development programs are primarily delivered by partners within the community. That includes the local Michigan Works agencies, the local adult education providers, and our post-secondary institutions. The exception to this is that we do run a Jobs for Veterans grant. So we have staff at Workforce Development, approximately 50, who are our veterans, serving spouses of veterans that do direct delivery. And we have a migrant seasonal farm worker program of about 25 who are out supporting farmers, supporting their need for workforce, supporting food processors in our state. Thank you. As I mentioned, the majority of WD's programs focus on a dual customer, both employers and job seekers. When you look at the programs that we deliver at Workforce Development, there's 3 key buckets. Adults. We would say anyone over the age of 18 is an adult. Because we're the government, I'm going to confuse you and kind of contradict that with my next statement, but we support adults. We also support youth. We identify a youth as someone who's 14 to 24, so a young adult. So could someone who's 20 be served as an adult? Absolutely. Could they be served as a youth? Potentially, depending on what services they need. And then the third are employers, really understanding employers' need for workforce. So adults, those over 18, can be an individual with a disability, a veteran, an individual who lacks a high school diploma or equivalency, a veteran, anyone who needs additional support. As we administer our federal workforce development programs, we are very strategic and intentional about our ask for state dollars. So when the governor comes to you and makes that ask, it is where we have identified gaps in our federal funding, where we see opportunities to support employers and job seekers throughout our state. What we are not asking for is funding to duplicate what our federal dollars do. As Director Corbin testified last week, our workforce system is making a huge impact. We have demonstrated effectiveness in the programs we administer, and we are seen as national leaders across the country. We provide employment services to more participants than any other state in the Midwest, and we are reversing a trend from previous decades where we weren't serving that many individuals. From 2005 to 2008, we were one of 5 states with the largest decline in workforce development participation, and now we lead the Midwest. Thanks to our efforts in strategic investment, we are #1 in credential attainment, directly supporting employers' need for a talented workforce. We are #3 in the nation with helping adults get employed. That has helped drive the slight increase in our labor force participation over from December to January and the prior 12 months. And we are top 10 in the nation for registered apprenticeships, 4th in the nation for active apprentices, 6th for new, and 6th for completers. Michigan is also third in the nation for reemployment services. And these are customized, spending the time to meet with employers and really understanding their workforce needs so that we can deliver a worker who has the knowledge, skills, and abilities that will help that business grow and expand. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the key programs that we deploy in order to serve our participants. And these are also part of the governor's executive recommendations for fiscal year 2026. The first is barrier removal employment success. That S for success is incredibly important to us. We love our acronyms. BREEZE is deployed in your communities to help support employment retention. This helps individuals who have a job keep a job. It helps individuals who want to get off the sidelines and get into employment, but face a barrier to employment. This program is so incredibly important because it supports the working poor. These are individuals who maybe make a little bit of money, enough money that they don't qualify for our federal workforce programs, but not enough to survive and thrive based on their current wages. So we help remove transportation barriers, housing barriers, childcare barriers to help that individual get into the workforce. It improves the workforce system in the communities. It is helping grow the middle class by removing barriers and ensuring that employers have access to talent. And this program has very strong return on investment outcomes. And it's incredibly important and critical, and I know Director mentioned this last week, of the 4 million households in Michigan, 41% per the United Way's Alice report are struggling to meet these basic needs. So providing support for no or low income individuals helps move individuals out of poverty. And individuals who participate in the BREEZE program have higher employment rates. Of the 4,000 individuals who participated in the BREEZE program, from September 21 to June of 2023, those individuals were more likely to be employed in their peers. And 1 quarter after program exit, individuals who received payments as part of the BREEZE program were 12 percentage points more likely to be employed, and then 4 quarters later, 8 percentage points. And their wages also saw significant increases. First quarter median wage almost $7,000 higher than the individual made before receiving services. So they've received the services 1 quarter, 3 months into the job, they are earning almost $7,000 more because those barriers have been reduced. And fourth quarter after exit, the difference still remains. I will be transparent, it does decrease a little bit, but statistically, it remains significant between individuals who didn't participate in the BREEZE program and individuals who did. You can see that wage increase is significant. I'd like to highlight one success program that occurred in Southwest, the Michigan Works agencies. Happy to report, I think I have their director behind me here. But they utilized part of their BREEZE funding to support 43 individuals helping get their driver's license restored through the Road to Restoration Clinic. Why is this so important? 43 individuals getting their driver's license means that they are now legally driving. They can get access to insurance. And now they have a license to get to the job, to go to the job each day. Maybe it's training and they needed training to keep that job or to get a better job. Now they can use the vehicle, use their license to get to training as well. And if you do the math real quick in your head, that's just over $500 per person that was invested to get those license. But that going back to 1 quarter after completing the program, $7,000 in higher wages, so a significant return on investment. The fiscal year 2026 governor's budget recommendation does include $7.5 million to strategically invest in your communities to help ensure more individuals have access to obtaining and retaining employment. Our registered apprenticeship program, I highlighted a couple of our successes. The great thing about registered apprenticeship is you are employed as of day one. You earn while you learn. We are investing in helping women, veterans, youth, people with disabilities, individuals who English is not their first language, help remove the barriers, get access to a registered apprenticeship program. And guess what? Registered apprenticeship, not only are you employed from day one, when you complete that program, which again, we're 6th in the nation in completions, you get an industry recognized credential that is portable, stackable. That individual now can have that for the rest of their career and build upon it. Director highlighted a couple times, it bears repeating again, individuals who complete a registered apprenticeship program 1 year later, 93% are retained in that employment. It works. The employer is investing in that worker. That worker is investing in themselves, and that creates a very strong bond and relationship. And what does that mean? As an employer, I'm not going out recruiting. I'm not trying to hire to retain, which have significant cost. Some reports put that cost to retrain and hire a worker at $12,000. So the investment really pays off. And also, 1 year post-registered apprenticeship completion, over $80,000. That is higher than the regional median wage, and actually higher than the 75th percentile of the regional median wage in every one of our prosperity regions across the state. So these are good paying jobs. I want to highlight a little bit, no, you can stay there, and talk a little bit about the people, right? Why we do this, why we get up each day, why we're passionate. Dominic, Emily, Zachary, Desmond, and Xavier embarked on a journey. These young men demonstrated their commitment to professional growth. They participated in the Great Lakes, in the Genesee, Shiawassee, and Thumb, or GST, Michigan Works Agency's youth program. That led them to take part in a pre-apprenticeship program. That apprenticeship program allowed them to receive assistance with bank accounts, obtaining necessary clothing and tools, securing identifying documents that they needed to get into the job, and making sure that they were ready to go. This led to the opportunity with Fleshler and Bauman and Howell, where they gained firsthand work experience. As they continued their journey, they became registered apprentices in August 28th of 2024. This is a significant steps. Again, hired on day one, earning wages while they learn, and when they complete their program, they will have an industry recognized, U.S. Department of Labor recognized credential. The fiscal year 26 budget includes an ask of $19 million for registered apprenticeships. We would utilize those dollars to support over 1,800 residents in our state and over 130 employers. The next item I want to highlight is our Jobs for Michigan Graduates program. Supporting our youth, keeping our youth here in Michigan is incredibly important. The population and demographics of our state, we have an aging workforce. Our population is declining. We need to do everything that we can to keep our youth here in Michigan. Jobs for Michigan Graduates does just that. This is a dropout prevention recovery program. We are in in every part of the state. We have, in 80 cities, are operating 126 Jobs for Michigan Graduates program. We are serving over 5,000 youth every year. These are school districts where the dropout rate is significant. The program goes in, it helps individuals understand where they are, and more importantly, where they need to be and want to be. What does their career look like? First rule, though, let's get them to graduate from high school. That lays the foundation for everything. Then let's talk about, what does post-high school look like? How do we help you remove barriers? Are you going on to post-education training? Are you going right into employment? Okay, if you're going into employment, how do we make sure that you know the critical skills that you need? Showing up on time, communicating, working as a team. That is what Jobs for Michigan Graduates do, and it works. We have a 90% graduation rate of individuals who participate. That means these individuals in some of the hardest to school served districts are graduating with a diploma and see their path forward. The success isn't graduating with a diploma, it's knowing what their next step is. And that is important because we want to see them here in Michigan, seeing that there are jobs in Michigan for them, there are opportunities in Michigan so that they stay and become part of our long-term workforce. The fiscal year budget includes $5.7 million to keep that program going. Finally, I want to talk about the Going Pro Talent Fund. The Talent Fund provides businesses across the state with in-demand needed skills and training for their workforce. This past year, we supported 38,000 individuals who received training and have an average training wage increase 6 months after completing the program of 7.2%. This statistic of completing the program and wage increase has been over since the program began, so almost 13 years. In that time, we have served 220,000 businesses. 90% of the 220,000 businesses are small employers. That means they're less than 500 employees. 60% of that 500 are what we call really small, under 100. So this program, while it's open to any employer in the state, there is really a support and emphasis for small employers. Our current year budget does have an ask of $54.8 million to help us support businesses and workers throughout your district. A little bit about the Going From Talent Fund process. The employer must identify short-term training. They must demonstrate that it fills a need, that it results in a credential. Again, we want to educate our workforce, so Going Pro training results in an industry-recognized credential, certificate, or degree. The employer works with their local Michigan Works agency to put together a competitive application to make sure it demonstrates the training need and shows the credential. Michigan Works then submits those applications to us. We do a competitive review, and those awards are given 3 times a year. Our next cycle opens April 14th, so we are very close to that. Very quickly, I wanted to prioritize when we are awarding funding for Going Pro, we want to ensure that we are supporting industries that are of high priority, industries that provide training and credits and credentials for the workers, that support businesses in low-income or distressed communities. We emphasize supporting registered apprenticeships. The wages for individuals participating in Going Pro must be at or above the regional median wage. We don't want to invest in minimum wage jobs. We want to invest in jobs that pay a family wage. And we cap the funding because the funds are limited. Individual employers are capped at $500,000. Lastly, once an employer gets an award, they are incentivized and get a small amount of dollars if they hire a veteran, if they hire an individual with a disability, if they hire someone who's working on getting their high school diploma or equivalency. So we want to prioritize and incentivize who the Going Pro employer is hiring as part of the process. We have no shortage of Going Pro success stories. I want to highlight a couple. Some of these companies should resonate with you. Duncan Aviation and Battle Creek utilized their funding to train 67 employees. 20 were registered apprentices and 23 were new hires. Rossini Brakes in Flint received a Going Pro award and upskilled 23 of their current employees. This has helped create efficiencies for them and has allowed them to project hiring additional workers for the upcoming year. Chain and Oil Company in Wixom was struggling to get individuals that had the appropriate licensure and certificates to help support the company's growth. They were able to utilize the funding to support individuals getting those CDLs, which sometimes are the first way into a job and then have so much opportunity for advancement. The Going Pro Talent Fund is invested in every community across the state. Last year, we gave out $63.1 million to just over 1,200 employers, supporting over 37,000 individuals. Highlighted on the screen, just wanted to pull out the investments that are happening in your communities, the number of dollars that were received, the employers, and the individuals trained. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully this information provided you a little more of an insight into workforce development in our state, and I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was very helpful. I appreciate all the work that you're doing there, and it's a lot, and you're working hard for the people of the state of Michigan, and we appreciate that. So I just have a couple questions, but the first one, as far as, determining what the industry needs, how do you work with them to get right down to the specific things like credentials and that sort of thing? How do you find those? How do you work with them to know what that is?
Yeah, we have a dedicated team at the state, as I said, that dual customer. So we have employees that's their job day in and day out. We certainly don't do it alone. We work with our Michigan Works partners. But one of the first things that we do when we sit down with an employer is to say, who's your best talent? Think about your best talent today. Where do you get them from? And what makes them? Do they have a credential or certificate? Did they go through a registered apprenticeship? We really start and ask them to say, your ideal employee, where did they come from? What were their educational levels? And then it's really a dialogue and a conversation, right? This isn't something done online. This is something sitting across the table and saying, okay, you're faced with some new federal requirements, and in order to grow and expand your company footprint, you need this credential, this degree, or these numbers. It really is when I say customized, it really is customized, and it's for their specific needs. But we love a best practice model that we've got some data behind is starting with that question, who's your best employee? What are their attributes? And how can we help you train to get more, work with education, identify who that individual and their characteristics to get more of them into the door.
Thank you. And then the Going Pro program, I've heard a lot of good things about that. What training facilities are allowed to be to use that funding? So I know you said colleges, universities,
Yeah,
but are there small career tech type schools as well that aren't necessarily a college?
Yep, absolutely. Great question. First and foremost, it's the employer who identifies the training. Again, by some of those same questions that we asked them, but they could do it in-house. They could do on-the-job training. They could say, my community college, let's sit down with them. They're going to do a short-term 5-week, 6-week program. Could be the community college, could be a proprietary school, could be for those that are blessed to have a strong career and technical education or CTE center in their background, in their backyard. It could be that. It could be labor organizations. It could be an independent third party. Maybe it's a new propulsion system and that's what they need trained on. And the vendor is the expert to train on a new piece of technical equipment that the company needs. It's really determined by the employer, but we're pretty broad. We just want to see those outcomes and the credential at the end.
Great. We have a couple questions. Rep. Cavett.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation today. I'm very informed from listening. 2 questions, if I may, Chair. Is that? One is, you mentioned bringing 75,000 people into the middle class. Mm-hmm. What is the metric that the state or your program uses to define middle class? And then using the GoPro program, what are the requirements that you put on employers to participate in the GoPro program?
Okay. The first one, the 75,000 into the middle class, we use a poverty definition that changes, that we get from the federal government every year, and it does depend on the size of the family and the location in which they live. We base a lot of our information on regional median wage. There is that median wage. We have the percentiles on the end, but we do go so far as to look at the family size. So again, we want them individuals to not only survive but thrive. But that it's a target that moves because we get new data each year based on cost and cost of living and housing and whatnot. So it does change based on where you live and the size of your family. And then Going Pro, the requirements, again, the employer has to show a demonstrated need. They have to say, I need to upskill my existing workforce or bring in new workers that will allow my business to grow and expand. They have to commit to paying a regional median wage. Like, we're gonna support training that pays good wages. And they have to document on the backside that the individual completed the program, and we identify the wages that 6 months post completion, because we want to show the return on investment. So they have to provide some documentation. But I'll tell you why, Chair, you mentioned it's so popular. It is not our federal program. It does not require all of the hoops, their term, not mine, that you have to jump through. So there is documentation for them. I will also highlight, which is incredibly important, this is a reimbursement program. You don't get the money up front. So if you say you're going to train 20 people and you only train 10 people, we go after 6 months after the training is ended, what's their wages? They're still employed. We would reimburse for the 10 that were trained, not the 20 that were part of the original plan.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Rep. Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for coming out. It was a great presentation, and it's cool to see because you can see your excitement about how successful GoPro is, and so it's Going Pro, not to be confused with the camera. But yeah, it's cool then when the project comes like this and it's just exceeding expectations. But I'm not sure if this is a question for you, Stephanie, or you, Jashana, but I'm referencing this year's budget, and I was wondering, under workforce development, there's several purviews which you're responsible for. And forgive me if this is accessible because I haven't seen it, but can you, and it's not anything you might answer now, but get answers to me, is like, what is, of the appropriated money for that, how much has gone to each of the services, like employment services all the way down to, you know, the adult education in that appropriated? Can you give me a itemized list of what each is appropriated for those programs?
In the workforce development
Yes, ma'am.
budget specifically?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to get you more specific information. I'm also happy to talk a little bit right now if
Sure.
there's specific programs.
Yeah, Stephanie can, please share what you can share now, but we can work with Marcus on the list. We did go based off the request to do an overview, but in terms of the list, if it's not public, we'll certainly make sure you have a list and provide an explanation for each one. That's what you're looking for.
Yep.
Rep. Van Workum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going through your presentation, maybe specifically with Michigan Rehabilitation Services, and then a lot of the barrier removal, employment success slide, where you discuss things like childcare, clothing needs, and things like that. How much integration, cooperation, or is it duplicative with the Department of Health and Human Services? There's a lot of things here discussed, let alone the MyLeap budget as well, with some childcare things and the workforce development things that they are doing. How much of that is now being duplicated over many services?
Yep. When it comes to, Representative, when it comes to the BREEZE program, I think first and foremost, the E is for that employment success. So these are individuals tied, there's a job there that we want to make sure they either keep or they get. And the individual is most likely not qualifying for a WIOA program, not qualifying for the TANF or the food assistance program, which we also administer the employment and training component in partnership with HHS, along with the Michigan Works Agency. Can I say that there has never been a person that's getting public assistance that is part of the BREEZE program? That's hard for me to sit here and say that, but I can tell you the premise of the program and how an individual applies and gets access to the BREEZE program is there is an employment barrier. The individual is about ready to lose the job or they don't have the job. They're earning some wages, but they don't qualify for the programs at HHS. They don't qualify for our Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. We certainly don't want to duplicate. We don't have enough dollars. We need to be scrappy and really sure that we are tapping into every funding source where someone is eligible to apply and asking for funding to fill in the gaps where we have those gaps. And that's what the BREEZE program does. It's gaps in other programs, not duplicating and allowing someone to tap into multiple programs for the same purpose.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to call Wendy Block, who's the Senior Vice President of Business Advocacy at the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, to present to us from the business side of things how our workforce development programs are going in Michigan. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, it was here. See if I show you I'm at all tech savvy. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Oh, not a touch screen. Okay. Let me see if I got that right. All right. So good morning, Chair Jenkins and members of the committee. My name is Wendy Block. I'm the Senior Vice President of Business Advocacy for the Michigan Chamber, and appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. I think because I sent these as PDFs, I'm going to have to do that, to testify on workforce development issues facing Michigan employers. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Michigan Chamber, just a quick snapshot. We are a statewide business organization. We represent about 5,000 members across our great state. We have a unique position where our members are really kind of a sampling of everyone. Our members are in all 83 counties. Their businesses large and small, everything from sole proprietors up to our state's largest employers. And we have the pleasure of being able to represent businesses really across all industries in Michigan. So that kind of gives us a unique voice in Lansing as we advocate for our members in the legislative process. But our mission is to help businesses succeed and to ensure a stronger Michigan for all. So let's start maybe just with a level set conversation because, you know, we talk to our members regularly. We hear from them. Workforce issues continue to be kind of at the top of the list in terms of things that businesses are voicing concern about in Michigan. And really, it means a variety of things to different employers. Really kind of depends on who you are. When you talk about your workforce issues, it means different things. But a lot of it kind of comes back to some of the structural issues that we have in Michigan that are creating barriers to success for both employers and employees. And, you know, a continual theme that we hear is just like we're struggling to find workers to fill the jobs that we have available. And that really kind of comes back, and I have a slide here that will show this, but to issues with just Michigan's demographics more generally, our aging and declining population, our lagging workforce participation rates. There also continues to be this mismatch between employer skills and their education levels and really what employers need in terms of their open positions. And then also just concerns about these issues that we've traditionally viewed as employee issues, but they've really become employer issues because there are key barriers to employability, primarily the access to affordable childcare, access to workforce attainable housing, and even transportation in different areas of our state are an issue. So just a few slides to kind of show the data points. So, you know, Michigan's population is aging quicker than elsewhere. I think Leo kind of touched on this a little bit, but Michigan is the 29th oldest state. We were in 2001, but we are now the 14th oldest state in the nation. And this is definitely contributing to our workforce issues, especially as baby boomers and even now Gen Xers are retiring, and kind of this idea of like who is stepping in to fill those jobs as those people leave our workforce, and just real concerns about what are we doing to make sure that there are people to fill in with those gaps. Another issue is just our that aging population, meaning that we have a flat labor force participation rate. So, you know, you can see here the takeaway is that even if we did a better job with net migration into Michigan, we still are going to remain in this flat position, which really creates question marks for Michigan businesses about, can I continue to grow my operations in Michigan, or will I continue to face these workforce shortages in the long term? You could see here, just in terms of the trend line with our labor force participation rates, going back to that like 1998, 1999 mark, you know, we had almost 70% of our population, our working age population, participating in Michigan's labor market, or, you know, they had a job. And today we hover around 62%. So you can see the significant drop off. Certainly we bottomed out at COVID, thankfully, and it has continued to increase from there, but it still is down from a historical perspective. And again, this kind of goes back to that natural attrition that we've seen, and also the out-migration of Michiganders, and really just still a gap in terms of available workers and really what Michigan employers need. And you can see here we are lagging the nation. I mean, the facts are the facts. Michigan ranks 32nd in the nation in terms of our labor force participation rate. Obviously, you can see, again, there was a bigger gap. We did, you know, especially kind of coming out of COVID or those years in COVID, we especially we were very exposed in this area, and we are kind of getting back up to that, more of that national trend line. But again, continue to need to focus on that and to find ways to improve. Michigan's unemployment rate is another factor that we look at, right? Like we hear from our members where, we see people who submit applications for jobs or resumes for jobs. We know they have a gap in their employment. The feeling is, yes, they're probably drawing on unemployment, but yet they're continuing to find those people willing to re-enter the workforce. Michigan's unemployment rate today is the 47th highest in the nation at 5.2%. Again, has come down. We are doing a better job in this regard, but we obviously need to do a better job to do some matching between those unemployed workers and the jobs that are available out there. And then finally, I'd say this is kind of the last data slide, if you will. There's a lot of studies out there about just the skills and the education levels that employers need and their inability to find people that actually have those skills or are willing to take that job. And here you can see in 2023, 69% of employers reported that they really cannot find people with the skills that they need to take those open positions in their workplace. And so skills and competencies. But that's a big number, right? 79% of people kind of saying, look, we need better. We need a better job applicant pool. And a lot of employers are trying to step in with solutions in their workplace, but there's only so far you really can take this as an individual employer. So let's shift and talk about childcare. So these are some of these, I'm going to talk about a few things that we view as key barriers to employability. Childcare remains kind of at the very top of that list and is in our minds, and I think studies will show, impacting our workforce participation rates. In 2023, we did a study with the U.S. Chamber and the Grand Rapids Chamber related to childcare and what we call untapped potential. And that report found that Michigan, due to childcare issues, Michigan is losing an estimated $2.88 billion in loss to our economy due to childcare issues alone. And that childcare employee turnover and absenteeism cost Michigan employers an estimated $2.3 billion annually. So you can see why I say what we used to see as a problem for the employee, right? They can't find child care for their kids. They need to find a solution. Now has become or morphed into more of an employer and an employee problem in terms of just really needing to solve this issue. And furthermore, you just look at the data in terms of people needing to lose their job due to lack of child care options or needing to make adjustments to their schedule, which means lost productivity to the employer because they lack resources in this regard. Obviously, childcare is very expensive, right? And it might not always be available in the community that you're in, especially if you're living in more rural areas. Providers, just a lack of providers is an issue. We'll talk about some solutions here in a minute. Housing is another issue. It's obviously a big issue in many areas of our state, including up north in the Grand Rapids area and even in Metro Detroit. The lack of workforce attainable housing, we used to call it affordable housing, but we now call it workforce attainable housing, is negatively impacting employers' ability to attract and retain quality workers. A lot of work has been done in this regard, but more work is needed, especially in our minds in terms of public-private partnerships, right? Government shouldn't probably be building units or only doing that when there aren't private options available, but there needs to be more done to incentivize the building of workforce attainable housing and to breaking down some of the barriers to doing that. And then finally, another key barrier is in this transportation piece. And really, we hear from our members that they've tried to step in to solve these issues. It's obviously very expensive to figure out how you're going to get a person from point A to point B, and if people are coming from different areas of a region. But, this kind of comes down to people not having access to a vehicle, or maybe they don't have car insurance. There's limited public transportation options. And actually, there's a lot of issues in our state where regional transit authorities aren't necessarily working together to get a person across jurisdictional lines. There might be two bus lines in two jurisdictions that butt up against each other, but it's really difficult to find that continuity between the two that doesn't involve 3-4 stops along the way, which is a barrier to someone saying, yeah, I want to do that. So let's talk a little bit in our minds about what's working. And I've heard a lot of questions about this today, but we would say Going Pro is the number one tool that the state has made available to employers that has really helped move the needle. The Going Pro Talent Fund is this idea where the state makes competitive dollars. I call them grant dollars. I'm not really sure they're fully grants, but available to employers to fill and address their own talent needs. It's not government coming in and saying, here's this shelf-ready solution for you, and we're going to solve your problems with this. It's the employer being able to identify for themselves what they need to grow and uptrain their employee population and to enter into an agreement to get some reimbursement for those efforts. And universally, those employers who have gotten dollars from the state for Going Pro will tell you that this is a very successful tool. So this program was set up in 2014. It was a brainchild of the Michigan business community as we got input from businesses across Michigan. They have released over 8,000 different awards to Michigan employers. The average award amount is $36,000, and there have been 175,000 workers helped. The average cost per employee is around just under $1,300. What I will tell you is that while we appreciate that the administration has continued to recommend dollars for the Going Pro Talent Fund, demand for this program continues to outweigh dollars available. Now, I'm not telling you that every single applicant deserves funding, right? This does need to be competitive, and we do need to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars that are available for this program. But in previous years, demand has exceeded $100 million per year, and I think I saw that the governor's recommendation for this year is probably around $35 million. This is down. Historically, it's been above the $50 million watermark, and so we would like this committee to consider more digging in further on this issue of demand and whether more dollars should be appropriated. But I would say above all else, the business community would say this is successful and there are metrics to prove it. In terms of other things that are working, we would say the TriShare child care program is somewhat successful. It is viewed as a national model. It's maybe not perfect and probably does require additional refinement, but this was launched in 2021 as a pilot program and trying to find a solution where you could get all parties kind of with skin in the game to help break down the barrier to affordable childcare. So employers pay a third, the employee pays a third, and the state pays a third of the cost. And it's done through these hubs. We do think that, again, refinement to the program is probably needed. Today, there are barriers to people participating because of how we set up who is eligible. And also, it's probably isn't as scalable as it needs to be. We're happy to come back and talk more specifics on this. And we also need to do more to reduce barriers to participation by businesses in this program. But it has started to move the needle, and we do think it does deserve further scrutiny and also further investment by the state. So I'm going to close with talking about a few kind of gaps or opportunities that we see for the LEO subcommittee. I think the first thing I would say is like this issue area is so frustrating because there is no easy button, right? There is like no way to just pass a single bill and be like, aha, we've solved all of the workforce challenges that employers across our state have. It just is going to continue to require you to work and be innovative in your approach to this. And I would argue that government doesn't necessarily need to be the solution on all of this, but there are key pieces where you can come in alongside private industry to be helpful. And so we believe that there are opportunities for the state to incentivize businesses to pool their resources to expand and build out childcare centers or to expand access in rural areas. Doing childcare is very expensive, right? We have a lot of members who have gone down this road to say, well, maybe we'll just do this ourselves. We'll just open up an on-site childcare center. And then they get into it and they realize that they need to put $1 million plus into that investment without a good return on dollars, and it becomes very difficult, not to mention just even the permitting issues that go into this, and how do you find enough providers to even staff a classroom. So we believe that there are opportunities for the state to come in and to help employers do this and to have vision in that regard. We believe that there are ways for you to incentivize cooperation between different businesses in different regions or different transit authorities to expand access to workforce transportation. Again, we have many members who've kind of said, we don't have enough employees in our region, so we're going to look at contracting with a bus provider to bus employees from one region to another. And they get into it and they realize that is very expensive, right? You're paying by the mile for that. So how do you break down some of those barriers, and how do you maybe use existing infrastructure to do that? Back to kind of the zoning issues as it relates to affordable housing, we believe that there is significant work that can be done on zoning and permitting reform to increase housing capacity and to reduce barriers to building new homes and units, and to allow private investment to kind of make more sense in this regard. And then finally, a few more, expanding access to expanding talent pools for critical jobs. We believe that more needs to be done in our K-12 system to expand access to career pathways. A lot of our kids don't even know about the jobs that we have today, let alone the jobs that we have tomorrow. Understand that that is a bit outside the purview of this subcommittee, but I can't not say it, I guess, as well as expanding access to skilled trades, short-term training opportunities. There's some good work being done at Leo in this regard, but probably additional opportunities. And then finally, we just say that in terms of our K-12 system more globally, that we need more high-quality student-centric options available for students, and really to be focused more as a state on graduating kids from our K-12 system who are ready to either enter the workforce or to go on to college or to a training program and be successful and without needing additional remediation. So I think, I got one more. And so final slide here, understanding how the state can better partner with industry to address workforce challenges. I think there's some work that's being done here, but I think a lot of times our members don't even really know where to start with this. They have an issue and they just want to go off and try to solve it on their own. That's the entrepreneurial way. But how can the state better partner on that and do more with things like the Going Pro Talent Fund, which is a really good model that maybe we could rethink for other things that we're doing. And then finally, I think for this committee and your efforts, just demanding more data to be made available publicly about the return on investments that you are making. I think that is your responsibility as lawmakers and with the appropriations process to be asking those hard questions about, does this make sense? Is this a good use of taxpayer money? Or is state trying to duplicate something that's already happening in the private sector? And if so, why are we trying to do it as a state? Why don't we let industry do what it does best and innovate? So that, I do believe, is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Appreciate that. That was a great presentation. Very helpful in understanding the whole picture, not just diving down specifically into the the workforce area, but also seeing the bigger picture of like the childcare and those sorts of things. That's very helpful. So one of the things you said that there's a mismatch between employer needs and worker skills and education levels. And I wonder if you could kind of explain that a little bit more, because we're trying to make sure that people are trained and have access to training, and we know we have Going Pro, but are there other ways that we're not hitting the mark?
Yeah, I think that's like kind of a rhetorical thing that we're hearing, but it's where jobs have a certain skill attached to them that you absolutely is non-negotiable. We just continue to hear from our members that they just aren't getting people with those skills. So I would argue that like things like the Reconnect program are great ideas, but the question becomes: are we kind of getting those participants into programs that actually are going to result in a real job in the real world versus just getting them a degree or a certification or other things. Like, I think as a state, our members would argue that we need to do a better job of saying to prospective employees or students, here's the jobs, here's what's in demand. We really think that this is the best lane for you to be in because it will result in your success. And I think that can happen better at all levels, whether it be starting in our K-12 systems, moving into our community colleges and public universities, and then even as we think about putting people into these retraining programs. I think probably the best job is being done at that latter start rather than kind of in those earlier phases. But again, I say that more broadly just because it is a sentiment that continues to be expressed within our membership of just kind of like, I can't find the people with the skills that I need, and I don't know what to do. Because unless I can get a Going Pro award, I don't know how to identify that person and get them trained.
Thank you. That's very helpful. We have a couple questions. Rep. Van Workum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got 2 questions, if that's okay. Thank you. The first one, I guess, is we've heard 2 presentations today. One painted pretty rosy picture of what was happening in the labor market and programs that the state is working on. Yours came with a little bit more blunt of numbers of where the state is. I'm just curious, listening to the other presentations, is there one that kind of scratched your head that maybe it doesn't quite explain the whole picture of what's going on in the state?
Yeah, I think actually the data was pretty similar. Maybe the presentation was a little bit different because this remains an ongoing issue for our members. And I think the governor has been focused on these things. I would say maybe in the real world, we haven't quite realized all the potential that is seen with a lot of these programs. So I don't know that it's a direct contradiction. And frankly, we have good dialogue with Leo and with the Michigan Works agencies and otherwise. And I think they are trying to move the needle on these things. Unfortunately, in the real world, it's not fast enough, right? Like, there's a lot of goals that are out there, but they're for 2030, right? That's still a long ways out. Like for my members, they're worried about the next 3-6 months or a year, and how do they move the needle now, right? So that's probably the biggest difference.
My next question is about a program I'm very familiar with the TriShare program with childcare. Just, I guess, a couple technical questions. I see here the refinement of 500% FPL. I don't know if with the program that is being used, whether it is eligible to 500.
It is
FPL,
not today.
So you would be asking for.
Yeah, and I think we've been talking to the Grand Rapids Chamber and others about this who, have been supportive of this program since the beginning of like, how do you get more participation in this program? And maybe you move into a sliding scale based on where you are in that federal poverty level, because we know that your need for childcare, access to affordable childcare, doesn't stop the minute you earn a certain amount. Right, there's a general benefits cliff that is out there, sure. And it is real, right? Where people kind of start to make this calculation. They say, but if I take that promotion in this job, I'm not going to be eligible for Medicaid, and that is worth X to me. And so, no, I'm not gonna take that next job or that next step because it means too big of a loss for me on other things. And that is a perverse incentive, right? Like we want people to want economic opportunity. And to be able to take that. And so I think TriShare is kind of a similar sort of thing where just because you make 500% of the federal poverty level doesn't necessarily mean that childcare has gotten any easier for you to access.
Sure. I mean, TriShare was built for that benefits cliff. That
right.
A lot of the employers, particularly manufacturers, are paying an introductory wage that goes beyond and already puts the benefits at risk. So this was kind of that missing middle piece to it.
Right.
But how it was also designed was that eventually possibly getting a waiver from the federal government that would allow us to get to higher FPLs. I just don't know, and I can talk to Marcus at the Grand Rapids Chamber about that. But also one of the beauties of the tri-share, I mean, the employer is not restricted to a third of the share. The employer can participate more in it than just the 1/3. But I'm also curious, one, I have concerns about the increase in scalability because I think this administration went beyond where it was just for the sake of the press release. I mean, this was designed that employers would come together and say, we want one of these hubs.
Yep.
It wasn't the government saying, hey, you be a hub, and we'll then get employers to participate even though they don't know. It was more of a chamber, go talk to your employers, get them to sign an agreement or a memorandum of understanding that we're going to go in this hub together and we're all going to participate. And that's kind of not been what we've seen happen. It's been the administration going out saying, oh, we're going to create the hub, we're going to do a press release about it, but the employers don't know anything about it. So I would guess encourage it on the business end to take the reins on that and create that scalability and come together locally and do it. But also curious of some of the other barriers that you're seeing by, that's a barrier to participation by businesses.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there is a complete reimagination, still taking the core of what TriShare was intending to be, which is to allow people to come together and say, we're all going to take a piece of this pie to make it affordable for the employee, but to rethink kind of how we're doing it and to better incentivize employers to kind of step up and say, let's do this, right? Let's be creative on how we approach this. So would love to chat with you more about that offline and get some more of your ideas. I think we're really open to how do you continue to refine that program moving forward.
Rep. Martis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here to testify this morning. I just had a quick question. Towards the end of your presentation, you talked about the necessity of permitting reform and zoning reform. That's something that I think over the past couple of years we've really seen a strong bipartisan consensus built about that. I think everyone's on the same page that we need to do something about zoning and permitting, but I'm curious if you guys have ever put together a list of what are some of those suggestions, because I think a lot of us want to work on it, but we're looking at guidance from the business community of what do we need to change.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up with that. I think in some of our members' mind, they would love to just see something that's like ready to go, shelf ready, right? If I want to build out a child care center on my property, like here's what I need to do and here's how the state is going to help me make sure that those permits all get pulled and they get approved and other things. Like we've had some members who've gone down this road and have broken ground only to find out that, like literally a mud puddle on the property was now a wetland and had to start over. Just frustration. Like I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to do right by my employees to build this out. And now you've just cost me months and thousands and thousands of dollars on this, and just like frustration that like they thought they were good to go, but they're not. So, I mean, that's just a one-off example, but like how can government kind of step in and say like, we have a shared priority with the business community on this, housing, childcare, and we're going to do everything in our power to make this as easy and as streamlined for you as possible. But happy to follow up with other more specific recommendations as well.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. And that will adjourn our meeting with no further business before us. Thank you.